Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We're in the Gospel of John, chapter 11. This is one of Jesus' greatest miracles. I'll say greatest miracles that he will do openly in front of everyone. There are great miracles that Jesus performed that the audience never saw. For example, walking on the water, when he walked on the water, the crowds didn't see that miracle, only his disciples. The Mount Transfiguration, only his disciples saw that miracle. But this miracle with Lazarus, first and foremost, Lazarus was his friend and his close friend. And I think we need to kind of understand that Jesus had his 12 apostles, and they were his close associates. They traveled with him all the time. Three of the 12, uh, Peter, James, and John, traveled with him more than any of the other nine. Okay. And then he had a greater number of apostles, 70, that he sent out. They preached the gospel, cast out devils, healed the sick. And then there was probably even a greater number. But of all of those who could call Jesus his friend, that would have been Lazarus and then his sisters, Mary and Martha. So when Lazarus got sick, they just naturally called Jesus. I mean, it was obviously it was serious enough that they said, well, we need Jesus here. And one of the interesting things that, and what this story unfolds is where their faith was. In other words, their faith was, in Jesus, but as we see that their thing is, if you had have been here. Translation 2, if you had a came when we called you, okay, he wouldn't have died. So this is kind of where they are, and that their confusion as to, you healed all kinds of people. Why wouldn't you heal your close friend? That's kind of interesting there. How they tried to put Jesus in that box. So, but this is going to be again. Lazarus is an interesting story because again, people oftentimes will say that if we only could see a miracle, we would believe. Now, I want you to see how this story is going to unfold because they will see a miracle. We'll see how they unfold. But I think the greater lesson here is where our faith should be. So one, you had Mary's expectations, which ultimately, came true. Jesus' message to them is that, well, whether it comes true or not, I am the resurrection, I am the life. Now, I say that because most of the world will not get this response from Jesus. And I'm sorry, that's reality. My first wife passed away early of cancer. We prayed, boy, did we pray. She passed away. And of course, I think every one of us knows of people, relatives, and loved ones that have passed away due to some illness or some accident, crime. So we know that loss, and of course, we didn't receive the miracle. And you may say, well, why did Jesus heal or raise Lazarus but won't raise my loved one? And I cannot answer to you the what's in God's mind in terms of his purpose. I will say this: death to God is a lot different than death to us. Okay? Now, I'm also dealing with this idea of the shortest verse in the Bible, for you Bible trivia people, and that is, I think, verse 35, where it says, Jesus wept. Now, that kind of always kind of puzzled me, because when you read it and you read the context, the first kind of, the first inclination is, was Jesus overcome with grief? In other words, when Jesus came to the tomb and he saw everybody crying, he saw the tomb of his friend, his close friend, was Jesus overcome with grief? And thus you have the phrase, Jesus wept. And I'm going to approach this from an opinion. Okay? From an opinion. I do not think Jesus was overcome with grief. Why would he be? If you stop and think about this, you go back to the very beginning of the chapter where he says, I'm going to wake him. He said, our friend, he was told Lazarus is sick. He said, okay, I'm going to literally wake him. And then he says, Lazarus is dead. I'm going to wake him. I'm going to cause him to come back. So why wouldn't he get that? Why would he be overcome with grief? Right? I mean, literally, why? If I had the power, like my first wife passed away, if I could raise her up, would I be in grief? No. I'm going to raise her. But why would I be in grief? Now, you go back, remember, in the few verses where it says that when he looked at people, he was angry. So I know the language, what we are at a disadvantage of is the not being able to see the inflections and all of that. But let's skip down to, I believe it's verse 35. Yes. So when he says to Jesus, let me go back in verse 33. Now, remember, he's told that Lazarus is sick. And then he waits 2 days. And by the time he gets there, Lazarus had already been dead 4 days. And of course, he's entombed. And the reason why back then, they didn't have embalming. Well, they did have embalming fluids, but that was usually for the rich. You had to be a king, right? Like how the kings of, would be embalmed and preserved. Okay, but the common man did not. So if you died, you was buried that day. All right, so in verse 33, he says, when Jesus saw her crying, meaning Mary, the Jews had come with her crying. Watch this. He was angry in his spirit and deeply moved. And this is, where have you put him? He asked. Lord, they told him, come and see. Jesus wept. So the Jews said, see how he loved him. So what did, again, wept means wept. So what does it mean? Was he angry or was he overcome with grief? I don't believe here that this is a picture of Jesus being overcome with grief. Again, why would he, when he knows just moments away, he's going to raise him from the dead? What's the grief? What is he sorry? He said, so the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, couldn't he who opened the blind man's eyes have also kept this man from dying? So notice what they're saying, right? Couldn't he have kept him from dying? The answer is yes, but okay. But Jesus also answered this question, didn't he? Jesus also answered the question. Let's go back to what he says. back in verse 4, when they sent the message to him, the one you love is sick. Verse 4, when Jesus heard it, he said, this sickness, get this, will not end in death, but is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through him. So again, I'm going to ask the question, why would Jesus be overcome with grief? All right. So as you can see right here, he already knew what he was going to do. So the answer to that question is, yeah, he could have kept him from dying, but he also said the reason, the purpose that's going to come as a result of him dying. Verse 38, then Jesus, again, angry, look at this, angry in himself, again came to the tomb. It was a cave, and the stone was lying against it. Remove the stone. Jesus said, anything, he's angry at their unbelief. He says, Martha, the dead man's sister, told him, Lord, he's already decaying. It's been 4 days. So again, see, her faith, her thing is, well, you should have been here, right? Now that he's dead, death has mastery over you. Because if you had been here, you wouldn't have died. We wouldn't be going through this. And what Jesus is telling her, I'm greater than death. Verse 40, Jesus said, didn't I tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God? So they removed the stone. Then Jesus raised his voice and said, Father, I thank you that you heard me. And I know that you always hear me, but because of the crowd standing here, I said this so that they may believe that you sent me. So again, I'm going to make my last picture. I'm going to move on. Why would he be overcome with grief? If right here, he's actually saying this. Where's the grief at? Anyway, 43. After he said this, he shouted with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, bound hand and foot, with linen strips, and his face wrapped in a cloth. And Jesus said, loose him and let him go. Now, the burial, they would wrap the body. Okay, and we're going to see this later with Jesus. He would be buried the same way and put in a tomb. So now, so this great news hit. Okay, so Lazarus is alive. And by the way, Lazarus has been dead 4 days. Everybody knows this. He's been dead 4 days. So therefore, many of the Jews who came to Mary and saw what he did, believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Look at these dirty rats. What they call them, snitches, right? But think about this. Why? They just seen an incredible miracles. Why are they running to the Pharisees? Why are they saying, okay, I'm with Jesus? So verse 47. So the chief priests and the Pharisees convened the Sanhedrin and said, what are we going to do since this man does many things? So they're acknowledging he's doing miracles. What are we going to do? He's doing miracles. This is amazing. This unbelief here is amazing. Because again, it's not about that they're confused. They see it, they're rejecting it. And that's what the true sin, even in a lot of the people's heart, that's what God is going to uncover at the judgment seat. Verse 48, if you let him continue in this way, everyone will believe in him. Then the Romans will come and remove both our place and our nations. Now, what that meant is their power too. Okay, and by the way, this is what they were put in place to prevent. Jesus being there wasn't going to stop that, because Jesus never said he was going to lead a revolt and lead the nation in rebellion against Rome. Verse 49, verse 49, one of them, Caiaphas, who was a high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all. You are not considering that it's to your own advantage that one man should die for the people rather than the whole nation perish." Now, he did not say this of his own, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus was going to die for the nation. Now, it said not for the nation only, but also to unite the scattered children of God. Now, there's a couple of things going on here with this verse right here that's very interesting. A couple of things here. Caiaphas prophesied as the high priest. Now, throughout the Old Testament, you will see that oftentimes God will use people, ungodly people, even evil people. So this is not in itself unusual that Caiaphas would prophesy this. Now, Caiaphas could have been using this in a shrewd way, saying, let's just give him the rope so that he could perish for the nation, not for the reason of uniting the children of God, but guess what? Get him out of our way. John here gives us the commentary that says that this was a prophecy from God, signifying that Jesus would die for the nation and for all of the children of God, scattered children of God. Now, they mean the Israelites here. The scattered children of God, meaning the Israelite. That's what he's referring to. He says, so from that day they plotted to kill him. Therefore, Jesus no longer walked openly among the Jews, but departed from there to the countryside near the wilderness to a town called Ephraim, and he stayed there with his disciples. Now, it wasn't that long. We're right towards the end. We're like really within 6 months, right, of the crucifixion. Now, verse 55, the Jewish Passover was near, and many went up to Jerusalem. Now, this would be the coming Passover where Jesus would die for the people. Probably, and again, it's probably closer than Lazarus being raised from the dead is probably really close here. All right, so the Jewish Passover was near, and many went up to Jerusalem from the country to purify themselves before the Passover. So and remember the Passover, according to the law of Moses, all the males were commanded to appear before this Passover once a year. There were 3 festivals. This was one of them. This was, of course, the high holiday, the Passover. He says they were looking for Jesus and asking one another as they stood in the temple complex, what do you think? He won't come to the festival, will he? The chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders that if anyone knew where he was, he should report it so they could arrest him. So you can see, you had this conspiracy where they were looking for Jesus. This is why, and even going back, remember when he healed the man born blind, they went and ran to the Pharisees because they, again, this would carry their favor. His parents, the one that was born blind, did not want to be involved because they didn't want to be ostracized. And so now you had about that these people. Now it's amazing because, again, what you have here, the hardness of sin. Now just think about this. You have here people who can witness a great miracle like this and still have the hardness of heart. We should not be surprised when we see that today. The hardness of people's heart. The hardness of people's heart. We have it today. And it can get worse. And here with the Pharisees, we always think of evilness, of the Antichrist. But look at this. These are religious people. They saw this great miracle and still rejected. They're plotting because he did it. Not, wait a minute, this miracle was of God. We should follow him. No, because he did this miracle from God, let's kill him. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.